Hi, I'm Dr. Britt Cordi from Superfoods. I am very excited to be joined here by Dr. Sundeep Dhesi. Today's conversation will be about menopause and women's health, and Dr. Sundeep Dhesi specializes in this. He has a private practice. Hi, Sunny, how are you?
Hi, Britt. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about what I'm most passionate about, health, well-being, and obviously women's health as well. So appreciate it.
You have a private practice, Vesana, in Rutland, but I know you also do a lot of online work. So it's a GP-led medical and wellness center for women, and you offer private services and aesthetic treatments. Is that right?
That's right. We do see men as well. We get referrals, but predominantly our patient base has always been women. Women do invest more in their health, especially during that perimenopause time in their 40s, late 30s onwards. And that's where most of our patients are the age group. I think our oldest patient is in her late 70s, early 80s. We have a couple of elderly male patients as well. But then I think our youngest patient's probably late 20s. Quite widespread, but predominantly we do see a lot of patients, women in their 40s and 50s, who are searching and trying to find answers as to why they're feeling the way that they are.
Yeah, and this particular conversation, I'd love to have another one with you another time, but this particular one is about women and the menopausal time in a woman's life. And I'm really interested to hear a little bit from you, just basically, when does menopause usually start and what are the symptoms of menopause?
So one thing I'll say to anyone listening to this, and please, take it from a 46-year-old male GP. I've spent time trying to understand. Firstly, every woman is unique. We have an approach in this country which is almost like a population medicine approach. So that question is very typical of what we are understanding and processing is that menopause typically occurs between the ages of 45 and 55. But if you look at that age range, that's almost a decade, it's 10 years. And in that time, what's going to happen? So some women will be in perimenopause from their late 30s to early 40s. Some may not be perimenopausal until they're in their late 40s or even early 50s. So menopause can vary, but generally the consensus is that between the ages of 45 and 55, an average age in the UK is about 51, and it's when you haven't had a period for 12 consecutive months. So no menstruation, no bleed for 12 months.
Mm.
That's what we call sort of menopause.
And what are the symptoms, Sonia? I'm really interested in that. I think it varies, but I'm really interested to hear about some of these symptoms and how long they last.
So I think this would resonate for anyone listening is that a lot of the time women will not even realize that this is the symptoms. One, it's sometimes like I don't want to face I wouldn't call it the mortality of it, but just you're facing something that you never wanted to go through because it's a real sign of aging. It is a natural process. But typically we have things like irregular periods. So suddenly periods get lighter, they get heavier, maybe never had painful periods before, or heavy bleeding. Mood swings. Sometimes it's really ironic that perimenopause kind of coincides with probably if you have a family and having teenage children. So
Mm.
it's almost like, well, is it just my children are really irritating me, or is it that it's hormonal? Hot flushes is one that everyone sort of recognizes. Not everyone experiences hot flushes though.
Mm.
Poor sleep, brain fog, increased anxiety, fatigue, and a big one that's maybe not spoken about very much is a real change in libido, so sex drive.
Mm.
And a lot of women just basically say, I have no interest anymore. And they feel sad about it because obviously if they're with a partner, their husband, who does have sex drive, it's quite, I would say, difficult in the relationship. And this is all due to fluctuations in those key hormones of estrogen and progesterone.
Interesting. So I have gone through menopause myself and I had some symptoms, but not very many. But I think what's also really interesting is what about the anxiety and the mood swing? Why do we get those or could get those? And how long do you think they will last?
So look, I know you're very much lifestyle orientated. You do all the right things. You eat well, you exercise, you're a mum, you have a partner, you're also a business owner as well. And most women are carrying that sort of stack of responsibilities. So, in terms of how long can it last for some women, it can last a decade. It can be almost 10 years of experiencing that. And then for some women, it happens very quickly and they come out the other side of it, or they transition through perimenopause, menopause, and it can only be a couple of years or a few years. I think when you're talking to a healthcare professional or you're worried about what am I experiencing, how much of an effect is it having on your home life? And why does it happen? Let's take estrogen, say, for example. It's a key hormone. It controls a lot of things. But if we take the brain, for example, there are a lot of receptors for estrogen in the brain.
Yeah,
And if
yeah.
suddenly you've got a decline in estrogen, then those receptors in the brains, whether they're neurons, whether it's the hippocampus for memory, you're not going to be able to access the things that you were able to access before. And that can then have a detrimental effect. So if you can't remember things, if you, for example, you're very organized and you're used to remembering things at the drop of a hat, um, now you can't remember things. That's kind of frustrating, and that can where irritability comes from. Some women who had anxiety when they were younger, they probably in their teenage years when the hormones were fluctuating, suddenly that all becomes apparent again. And a real thing that you're probably already aware of is that there's a lot of undiagnosed things like ADHD, which,
Mm,
yes, there's a bit of a some someone listening to this might roll their eyes, but a lot of
mm.
women do have ADHD. They've been able to manage it throughout their whole life because women are very versatile and multitasking. But when their hormonal profile changes, suddenly that becomes more apparent. And you may have noticed that because you see a lot of people in the business as well, don't you, who are women. So things like that can manifest. So why does it happen? It's because hormones are so important for control of various systems. And how long does it last for? It can be years or it can be sometimes just a couple of years. So,
What about Sonia? I'm interested in what to do about it then. So there's the hormonal replacement therapy, but what are there any side effects of that? What are your recommendations, your thoughts around that? And are there any natural alternatives to that?
so I'm doing my training with the British Menopause Society to become a specialist and be accredited. And that's a long journey. I didn't realize how long it was going to be because women's health is complex.
Mm.
And we haven't had as much investment in women's health as we have in men's health or in general health. And one of the reasons for that, if people are interested, is that because women have a fluctuating hormone level and a cycle, researchers don't like all that complexity. So they
Mm.
just excluded women from those research studies. In terms of HR, it's really funny because as part of my training and wanting to be a specialist, you surround yourself with women's health specialists and you just kind of assume that everyone knows about HRT. But then when you speak to patients, they're like, well, I'm worried. I've heard that it can cause cancer or it has
Mm.
side effects. I can get weight gain from it. And I think those are slightly unfounded. Is there a natural alternative? There are supplements or supplementation. I would say, I know you're a strong advocate for this, is that look at lifestyle first. You look at
Yeah,
things like alcohol consumption,
yeah,
look at the chronic stress, look at what is in your diet, and look at that first to see how much can I optimize that first. Supplements, things like evening primrose oil, to an extent, things like phytoestrogens, they
yeah,
can support it. So
yeah,
phytoestrogens are something wondering about. These are things that mimic estrogen activity in your body. So, for example, soya is a
yeah,
natural phytoestrogen, but instead of getting soya supplements, you'd want to maybe have more soya in your diet. And I'm not talking about soya milk, which only contains 2% soya. You're talking about tofu or soya in a raw form and adding
yeah,
it into foods. That's why in the Far East, all women have really great skin because they eat so much fish and soy all the time.
yeah.
And soy sauce is not also soya, so just to make
Yeah.
it clear.
It's really interesting. So, making it personal on me, I had very few symptoms. I had a little bit of hot flushes, not for very long. I think I had it for about maximum a year. And that's pretty much what I had personally of side effects. When I give talks about menopause, which I do a lot to women, I think to do natural, really diets that are really rich in natural foods and superfoods or a very naturally rich plant-based
Yes.
diet really makes a difference. And I just took a lot of, I guess to say, I took my superfood juices. I don't take really red meat, a little bit of chicken, lots of fish. And I think that definitely helped me.
Do you think that's also from, obviously, I think exactly, you're an advocate and you live and breathe what you talk about, but there's also a little bit of genetics at play here as well. Obviously,
Always will be, of
yeah.
course. There is always a bit of genetics, but we also know that how genetics expresses itself
Yes, exactly.
depends
Epigenetics.
on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
lifestyle. And so the
Yes.
healthier you live, those genes will express themselves in a better way for you, rather than if you actually consume alcohol, smoke, or
Yes.
just don't take up so much of natural green or other vegetables, colors. And one thing I found, I think is also part of it, is that you do physical activity
Yes.
regularly. It helps your mental health. Obviously, it helps your physical health, but it's the whole package again, isn't it, Sunny? What do you think about it?
Exactly. No, definitely. If you look at, if you imagine if it's a pyramid of your approach, as any woman's approach to perimenopause or menopause, is that the base of that pyramid is everything you've just described. And at
Mm.
the top of it would be HRT. So in recent years, HRT has moved to what we call bioidentical hormones. So this is where it's hormone replacement that mimics the body's natural hormones, whereas before it was animal based, so quite a significant effect on the hormonal profile. Now we call it
Yeah.
body identical. And in fact, the
Wow.
estrogen that is derived now for body identical that's produced is derived from Mexican yams. So it's a plant-based derivative. It's just a pharmaceutical grade. So there are some supplements out there, Mexican yam supplements, but with HRT now, it's body identical. It's meant to mimic, and there is still women have sensitivities. So really for hormone replacement, I'm an advocate of it. Your body, for some women, their bodies, their ovaries are not producing enough estrogen, so you have to supplement in order to help the symptoms. It can be formed in the tablets, patches, gels, or sprays. And for most women under 60 or within 10 years of menopause, the benefits of HRT outweigh the risks. So we're always worried about the risk of breast cancer or endometrial cancer. But
Yeah.
if you take HRT within 10 years of menopause, the risk reduction in cardiovascular disease, so heart attack and stroke, I think is significant, more than 30%. The risk of cognitive decline, like dementia or Alzheimer's, is again reduced by more than 20%. And the
Mm.
risk of osteoporosis, so it is
Somehow.
significantly
Yeah.
reduced.
Right.
So HRT definitely has a place,
Yeah.
but I
And
think,
it's clearly moved on. So the research
yes.
has helped. That's fantastic. That is lovely.
But you're asking about, I don't know if you take these supplements, but magnesium, vitamin D, we've
Yeah.
spoken omega-3 quite a lot in the past, and B vitamins, and then obviously superfood juices. I would say that in our modern diet, we're probably deficient in all those things.
Yeah.
So definitely would recommend that.
I agree, and I think that's exactly what I was doing, and I guess why I then had so few symptoms. And I did not take HRT. I did not need to. I took a bit more wheatgrass juice actually with the B
Yes.
vitamins and obviously the chlorophyll, all the enzymes. The B vitamins is in there. The magnesium, obviously, central molecule in chlorophyll, the green colors. That
And I would
definitely.
agree with you that you sometimes need to take things in a whole food format. That's where the benefit is rather than a supplement. Supplements are convenient. Sometimes we can't consume it, but I would agree with you completely that in a whole food, a
Mm.
supplement is much better and it's more in its natural state. So exactly what you just said.
One thing really interestingly, I've heard many or several women asking me about is you mentioned about tofu and what that might be able to help. I've heard women being worried about that for breast cancer.
So I think let's put it into context. So breast cancer is, I think, much better diagnosed now. So if you ever have a breast lump, over the age of, if you find a new breast lump and over the age of 30, should go to your GP and you will immediately be referred on the 2-week cancer wait pathway. We shouldn't be afraid of saying those words. We shouldn't be
Yeah.
afraid of that because the thing is, early detection leads to early disease treatment. And
Yeah.
sometimes it could be nothing, but sometimes it can be. So
Mm.
anyone listening to this and you've had a new breast lump and you're over the age of 30, you should immediately be referred under what we call the 2-week cancer pathway, especially in the NHS. Obviously,
Yeah.
privately, it can be done a bit quicker. Does an excess amount of phytoestrogens? No, you have to be consuming huge quantities. Now, if you have a genetic risk, then yes, you shouldn't be taking excess estrogen. So if mum or grandmother or
Yeah.
maternal aunts or sorry, on any side have had breast cancer and it's gene positive, then definitely. But these days, if you know your family history, then it's usually good and you would have been tested or screened for that gene test. But I think it's safe to take phytoestrogens.
Mm.
It's safe to take HRT. We know what the risk is. If you are at high risk, then someone will identify that you shouldn't take it. And let's put it into context. If a woman drinks more than 3 units of alcohol daily, on average daily, so what we're looking at, a large glass of wine, maybe a glass and a half, you've got more risk of getting breast cancer than a woman who's on HRT and consumes minimal alcohol. So
Yeah.
alcohol is a bigger risk for breast cancer, HRT, or overconsumption of alcohol, which can happen quite easily, especially in modern society.
Really interesting. Now, talking a little bit about symptoms, and which we've done, and now is the question, should I go to my doctor with symptoms? Will he or she know what to do? And where do you come in?
So we offer a private service. That's my little pitch for thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we do offer a private service, but I'm a strong advocate for the NHS.
Mm.
I would love that if you have symptoms, as GPs now, we're better educated. 5 years ago was a different matter. 5 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say I don't know as much as I know now. Have I collected myself into that role because obviously I'm more interested in women's health and we do it. It's how you look and how you feel is really important to us in clinic. But yes, more than welcome to see private patients. We tend to see more complex ones because you should be able to go to your GP, list
Yeah.
your symptoms, be able to start on HRT. But sometimes it might be that actually I take my progesterone component of my HRT and I'm really sensitive to it. And you think back to when you were younger and you couldn't go on the pill, say, for example, because of that very reason. And then sometimes that's where, without that specialist knowledge, people struggle. So I would always say first point of call is GP. They would
Yeah.
be more than happy to help. If you Google in your area, you can sometimes Google NHS Women's Health Centres. So there should be a dedicated women's health centre where you can see a specialist. But if not, and it's the convenience of seeing someone privately, we're here at Vasana as well.
Great. And you do online as well as actual.
It's always good to see patients face to face, but online, and when we can arrange for things like blood tests or face to face measurements. And you've got patients in London, we've got patients in Manchester, and they go to sister clinics and get their assessments done, and then we can prescribe. But even then, we send a letter to the NHS GP to say, would you consider this is the prescription that we've recommended? And there you go. And then, so more than happy to do online as well.
Thank you, Sonia. I really appreciate that. And we will have underneath a link to your address and contact details. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your time.
It's okay. So I just want to sort of end. So midlife is not the beginning of a decline. I know I've learned this from you as well when you've done your talks.
Yeah.
It's a time for becoming educated. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
It is. And it's also a time where women generally begin to get a bit more time for themselves, and that it can become a period of great empowerment and self-discovery. And of course, the symptoms last only a short time, and particularly if we keep ourselves fit and healthy and take all the natural foods, and going in and make sure that we also have the medical profession behind us. And I will definitely put contact details for you below.
Thank you so much, Britt. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sundeep Dhesi. Fantastic. Thank you.